Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folarin. Hope we meet you well. Okay, up front, my guest this morning is constitutional lawyer Dr. Tunji Abayomi, Pro-Chancellor at Atiku Ajashin University. As you know, he's also, a politician.
A professional in politics.
A professional in politics. Thank you very much for coming on, Dr. Abayomi. Okay, now. We're now shifting focus, so to speak, to the presidential tribunals, which are built to take off next Monday, on the 8th. Well, this is the nature of democracy. It is allowed that you protest, but from the point of view of some, they can't really see what the protest is all about. However, we'll sort of look at that and see what the chances are. Of course, we can't prejudge, pre-guess, the tribunal. But Tinubu, as is well known, scored 8.8 million naira. Got naira on my mind. Tinubu scored 8.8 million votes. Atiku scored 6.9 million votes, and Obi scored 6.1 million votes. That's apart from the 15 others, but those are the principal three. And the other two in that trio of Tinubu, Atiku, and Obi have indeed, lodged petitions at the presidential tribunal. Okay. So, Dr. Abayomi, give us an insight into what is the main thrust of their complaint, because INEC had declared Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the winner. And there are people who, Obi, for instance, says that I won and I'll prove it, where people are still waiting for that proof. How big a job do you think he has? Proving that at 6.1 million votes, he somehow won over the 8.8 million votes declared by INEC.
Well, it will be difficult, but first, let's understand the grounds on which election can be questioned. First, that the winning candidate, was not qualified. In other words, both PDP and the Labour Party must show that Bola Ahmed was not qualified to run for the election. The second one is that the election was corrupted. It became irregular because of corrupt practices. That's the second. The third ground is that the winner did not score the majority of the votes, lawful votes cast. In other words, you have to put your petition within any of those three categories. That Tinubu wasn't qualified, that it was infested corrupt practices and irregularities, or that he didn't win the majority of votes cast. Now, it's important to also understand that you are going to be going uphill battle because there's a presumption of irregularity in law. In the Evidence Act, it says that if an official process takes place, the presumption is that that official process is regular. Now, in the case of the petitioners, I think largely their position is that Tinubu is not qualified. They found out all sorts of issues. One of the issues that was raised, which I have spoken about again and again as a trained American lawyer, one of the issues they raised was that his candidacy was defeated because purportedly, and I say purportedly, he was involved in some kind of drug case. But like I have said, it's a non sequitur. It's nonsense. Because if we look at the proceedings in court, the documents from the court, American court, it says plaintiff against certain properties. In all of the world, in any country, when you use the word plaintiff, I repeat, whenever you use the word plaintiff, it is a civil case. In all criminal cases, you say state against the federal government, COP. It is a state or its agency, a security agency, against a person. Now, with regard to forfeiture, I have explained this issue. Forfeiture in criminal cases follows conviction. It is a punishment that follows conviction. In other words, to forfeit anything in a criminal case, you must first of all have been charged to court. You must have defended yourself. You must have been found guilty. You must have been convicted, and it is part of the sentence after. However, in cases of forfeiture in civil cases, it is often, especially when you say plaintiff, a civil case. Let me give you a simple example. As a lawyer, assuming I did a case for a drug baron, and he pays me out of the proceeds of illegality, the law can go after that money, regardless of the fact that it was paid to me. As far as the law is concerned, you can look for another way to pay me. But it cannot pay me from the money of illegality. The court will go after, will attach it by way of forfeiture. Although I have absolutely nothing
to do with
the crime. However, the money has something to do with the crime. And therefore, you take an action against that asset. That was basically what happened in the case of Tinubu. So, the issue as to whether that is a condition that disqualifies Tinubu is nonsensical. It just doesn't stand to law. Now, they have also raised the issue of that we didn't win the majority of the vote, but they are not complaining in terms of numbers. Their position is that the condition said that it has to have 2/3 of it has to have 25% in two-thirds of all the states of the federation, as well as the majority of the votes. They have no problem with the majority of the votes. They are not contesting that because the gap between Atiku and Tinubu is so vast. We're talking of almost 2 million. And therefore, how do you now square that? How do you knock it down to defeat the majority? Now, but what they are complaining about is that...
Atiku is not complaining about that. But remember that Obi is at 6.1 million votes.
Yes.
He's saying that he won and he's about to prove it.
Yes, that's it. Well, we'll wait and see how he's going to prove it. But I think both of them are hanging their something on the 2/3. That, for example, the 2/3, you have to have 2/3 in, you have to have 25% in 2/3 of all these states.
And federal capital.
And it says, and federal capital. That's what the law says.
That's their read.
Their position is that you must have 25% in 2/3 of the states and also have 25% in federal capital territory. That is nonsensical. Absolutely nonsensical. And it is rather strange because I listened to a number of senior lawyers saying that. I'm surprised, you know. Now, and I give a simple example. Assuming, for example, you say 2 men must bow to the king and a woman. And there are 2, let us even say, 5 people, 3 men and 2 women. Is it now your position that a woman will not bow to the king? If you say 2 men must bow to the king and a woman, it implies that the 2 men and the woman must bow, do the same thing. You understand what I mean? So, to say that, the reason, let me explain very well.
Okay.
The reason why there is a dichotomy, and it says and.
That word and,
yes,
linking the 2 paragraphs.
The reason is very simple. You cannot treat unequals equally. Federal Capital Territory is an unequal state. with the other states of the federation. Listen to what I just said. You cannot treat unequals equally. In other words, you cannot give the same prescription binding equally to unequals. But because the Federal Capital Territory is an unequal state, like others say, the Constitution says it should be treated like a state.
Exactly.
Because it says
it should be...
For the purposes
of this,
yes.
It is regarded as a state.
In fact, for all purposes.
But it is not a state in that sense. It doesn't have its own House of Assembly.
That is it, or the governor.
Or governor, it has a minister.
And the mere fact that it says it has to be treated like a state shows it is not equal to a state. Mm-hmm. Because of the inequality, like I said, you cannot treat unequals equally. You now have to create the dichotomy. Just as you created the dichotomy, two men must bow to the king and a woman. Because a woman is not a man. You create the dichotomy. But in terms of the action, it remains applicable to both. So
those who are pursuing that line of thought, and as you said, yes, some senior lawyers,
yes,
well-known senior lawyers, I see them really sweating in their enthusiasm or passion for their concept of the understanding of the law, yes, that if you don't have Abuja,
yes,
FCC Abuja,
yes,
then you cannot be said to have won.
Yes.
And
that can neither be supported in logic, cannot be supported in law, and it cannot be supported in morality. Because to do that is to place Abuja and the citizens of Abuja, not just Abuja, above all citizens. In other words, that would mean that even if you have all the votes in all the states, if you do not have the vote of these super citizens.
You understand what I mean? Because Abuja, FCT then becomes like a super state. And that is not the case.
It's like Washington, D.C. is District of Columbia, so to say, is a special status in America. Can you now turn around and say that if you don't have a certain number of votes in Washington, D.C., you cannot become the president of Nigeria? I mean, that is nonsensical.
So that is what the tribunal will have to decide upon once they start sitting. The other thing I read somewhere is that they're even now looking at the vice president-elect, running mate to Tinubu at the time, that there was dual, he had a dual status. That is to say, what is it now?
Dual nomination.
Yes, dual nomination.
Yes.
And therefore, that serves to disqualify the entire candidature of APC.
Yeah. But a man cannot be disqualified by that. He can only be disqualified if he runs for dual elections.
Okay.
Which is an impossibility.
It is.
In the case of the vice president, he ran as vice president. And mind you, he ran in the same political party. It's not a question of coming from another political party and coming to APC where he was not a member of the party. Again, that argument, in my view, cannot stand. But lawyers must put, arguments before the court when they are briefed by their clients. You cannot say to your client, some will, that, you don't have a case. You understand what I mean? So sometimes, the law does wonders. So that's why I think lawyers attempt to push sometimes the incredible
to the
positions.
very, very limits.
Yes.
And that would be the business of the lordships to sort of
sort out
all of these matters. Yes. It's even though they continue, that is those who are protesting, not each of them with the same fervor. I've read, if it is accurate reporting, that Atiku, for instance, had actually counseled maybe they should go withdraw all of these, advising Obi to withdraw all of this, if that was accurately reported.
Yeah.
Probably they have a presage of this thing is going to be a bit difficult. At this stage, how do you say a person that has been legally, declared, somehow the body that was appointed constitutionally to so declare if it saw fit was wrong, but you are going to come against it? It's not impossible, but it's an uphill task, isn't it?
It is. My view is that the public campaign, the massive public campaign against the election, in my view, is a recognition by the defeated candidates that their chances of winning at the tribunal is next to zero, or at the very least, the smallest, which is next to nothing. Because let us understand something. Even if there were irregularities in an election, the law is firmly states that if the election is substantially, if it appears, you listen to, if it appears that is substantially in compliance with the act, that election will not be invalidated.
Indeed. So it doesn't matter that you might have found one isolated case of some impropriety.
Yes.
If the word is substantially that you've just spoken about.
And it makes a whole lot of sense, because an election to which the state spends millions, apart from that, the involvement of millions of citizens, the involvement of maybe thousands of agents, the interest of the world, the delicacy of transition from one government to another, the disorder that may arise. When you think of all of this, an election is not something you just, as a matter of course,
just
throw away.
Flick it off like that.
And that is why the law says, if it is substantially in compliance, that election stands. Now you have to show cogently, concretely, and convincingly to the tribunal that that election was not substantially in compliance with the law.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Abayomi. Good morning, Reverend Dominic, for holding on. Thank you for holding on. Go right ahead now.
Good morning, Chief Yori. Good morning, Dr. Abayomi.
Yes, good morning.
Dr. Abayomi, I want to say this in a lighter mood, in a very lighter mood.
Yeah.
Dr. Abayomi,
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Now, Dr. Abayomi, in law, the precedent is a strong factor in law. Precedent.
Yes.
A friend of mine called me from London.
Yeah.
He said, "What is happening in your nation? How come a person who got third in examination is challenging that examination? How is going to knock out the second before the first?" I said, "Well, in Christ we are living, we have seen a man come forth, become first. And that happened in my state, sir. That's Imo State. Mm-hmm. In Imo State, the last election, 2 elections that brought the governor now, in Imo State. The governor in Imo State came first. In that election, PDP came first. In that election, AA, that the in-law of Rochas Okrocha used to contest the election, came second. ABGA came third, and APC came fourth. But how the man make it and went to Supreme Court, the man who came fourth become first is what seems troublesome of us today. So when my friend coming from London, it's a laughing matter. He said it's impossible for AP to win because they come third. I feel in our life here, a man that has come fourth has become first. That's the Imo State. So what I'm trying to say is this. I don't know how it's going to work, but this election to me is most free and fairest election under the sun. In come to Nigeria contest is 1999. People may shoot me about this. Why? For the first time in the history since 1999, the third force has not got up to 1 million votes. I'm yet to quote correct or wrong. From 1999 to 2019, Nobody has contested against APC and PDP and have 1 million votes. But now we have 6 million, we have about 6.9 million and 8 million. I think it is well contested. Everybody must have his grounds. I plead to our people to allow a sleeping dog alive. Let us have a peaceful nation. We have enough war in Nigeria already. Let us move on. I feel for Aswaju, we unite Nigeria and stop this carnage of blood every day in Nigeria. Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Thank you.
Well, again, attesting to citing the case of Imo, sometimes the law can surprise you.
The law can, it depends on what is taken to the court. Sometimes people misunderstand this issue. If, for example, the issue that went to court, I haven't really read the Imo case, but the point is that if his position is that the other candidates are not qualified to run for one reason or the other, the court will declare him winner. If a fact can be shown. The point is this, that a court will decide on what is before it. And we should give faith, full faith and credit to the decisions of the court. No court will, for example, declare a loser winner if that loser is not deserving of being declared a winner.
Bola has also called in. I beg your pardon. Mr. George, good morning to you in Ikeja.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and greetings to the elder statesman there.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Uncle Yori, when this case, the litigants themselves, they know they are not going to win that case. What worries me is that contesting the result of elections has